and say, first, hello, how are you? How are
How are
you?
you?
How are you doing? How did you get through the pandemic? Is everyone healthy? Are you vaccinated? Are you out and about? Are you going to restaurants? What's going on?
I feel so lucky and blessed. I am double vaccinated, as is my husband. And after holing up literally for from March 13th of 2020 until liberation point, we we just feel very, very lucky not to have escaped it, essentially, with intermittently with wonderful little outdoor rendezvous with our 3 grandchildren under the age of 5 running around the yard or that kind of thing, all in mass. I mean, we were in mass. But I would say that I was thinking about this very recently, but at some level, we are so blessed. We had a son and a fiance at the time, both of whom had COVID and escaped, and then we ended up having a COVID wedding with just immediate family and bridal party, but it was really, really beautiful, and it kind of, put the emphasis where it should be on life. But I think the hidden blessing is I have been married it'll be 45 years in July, and I've never had a huge amount of time with my husband on a daily basis the way the pandemic presented it. And we didn't kill each other. And it really was just to have that much time at this point in our lives was just a real blessing. It was it was just very special. I was obviously so horrified and struck, and the tragedy of everything around us was horrifying to me. Quite honestly, working from home was a major challenge in that it was great not to have a commute, but I'm a healthcare lawyer, lobbyist, and I mean, I was going 12 or 14 hours a day, a lot too, for a huge chunk of that time. So it was very intense at that level. And then I would also just mention that I was in a retirement mode situation from Aiken Gump that has mandatory age retirement policies. So I would not wish on anyone having to make a career move in the middle of COVID the way I was forced to. The good news is that a colleague and I had committed to jump together. We've practiced together for like 35 years. And at the end of the day, it was great. We had 3 wonderful offers, 2 from big law firms and 1 from a very highly regarded small boutique, Capitol Counsel. And that's where we ended up. So
congratulations. That's an exciting year, even when you're stuck at home.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think we've all misnamed working at home, where we're actually living at work.
Yeah,
that's
true.
That's what it feels like. And it's time to break out of this, I think.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
And congratulations on 45 years of marriage. That's exciting. So I celebrated my 41st anniversary yesterday.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. Flag Day. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Very special day.
Nice. Yeah.
But we didn't have the benefit you did of being both together during the pandemic. She works for senior living.
Oh, wow.
She was there every day, plus.
Oh my gosh.
So
wow.
Anyway.
Those folks on the front line deserve our heartfelt national and personal thanks. I mean, the people who I represented the rehab hospitals, and I represent nursing home interest, and just, I mean, those folks were so challenged at so many different levels that it was amazing, and continue to be to this moment. So it is. I mean, it's been fascinating to me that the grocery workers, that sort of the gas station. I mean, people that are essential to all of us to keep our daily lives flowing and going, really took the brunt of this. They really sacrificed quite a bit and put themselves in danger quite a bit. And I'm not sure they've been recognized enough for that. I agree with you, Doug. Totally. I really do. I think we have a new appreciation for the first line defenders and what that means, how you define it, and who that entails, for sure.
So let's talk about LGW. How did you get involved with LGW? And this is a 35th anniversary special. You were in the 3rd class, 89, boring but bonded.
Uh-huh.
So we want to talk about how you picked that name and how did you get involved with LGW? What did you know about it before you joined the class, and what made you join?
Sure. Thank you. I was involved in a direct way with the creation of LGW, and that I was serving on the board of the Junior League of Washington when the Board of Trade, John Tidings, and former president of the Junior League, Janet McNamara Harrison now, and Barbara Blum and a number of other community leaders started talking, and Julie Rogers from the Meyer Foundation, and the Junior League and the Meyer Foundation and IBM, I guess, initially funded Leadership Washington to get it started. And so the decision on whether to engage and whether to support this new concept and this new fledgling organization was one that I was very aware of from the beginning. And we had to take it to the membership for a vote and to get the support and to kind of be there. It was like, hands-on from day one. We were really fortunate in that because of the league's founding role, I think there was an opportunity, there has been an opportunity presented to the Junior League for many years to have its leadership involved in some way with Leadership Washington. And the decision was made by the league that if a person could join, it would be the president-elect of the Junior League, because it would be most helpful to that person to have the benefit of the network and everything. So I was in, as you said, class 3. Vicki Martie preceded me, and we really were. We had the most wonderful group right from the very beginning. Some of the norms, yeah.
You waited your turn until you were president-elect of the Junior League. That's
Yeah.
why you came to the third class.
Yes, yes.
But you were part of the founding of it, part of the board when the Junior League, Meyer Foundation, and Board of Trade founded us.
Right.
And you were on the board as part of that. And Janet
I was on the board
McNamara Harrison is one of our founders. So.
Yes, I was on the board of the Junior League, and Janet Harrison was the president of the Junior League at that time and brought it to the Junior League Board of Directors for consideration. And
so when you first heard of this, did you say, what is this? Or
no,
or did you sort of get it right away?
Oh, I mean, I got it right away. So did everybody on the board of the Junior League.
Right.
I mean, the Junior League was an organization very much in change at that point in time as well. Women who were in the league were number of people on the board were balancing careers and children and family life. So, I mean, there was a very strong, kind of corporate sector group on the Junior League Board of Directors. And in addition to a number of, the Junior League is a volunteerism organization, and the different entities that Janet and John Tidings and Barbara Blum and others put together, who kind of formed, I think, a program committee, if you will, to get the Leadership Washington model established, which stayed, the formula stayed the same in the early years and is very similar to this day in terms of they looked, I believe, at leadership programs across the country and modeled some of what they thought was the best of what other cities and people who had prior to the formation of Leadership Washington had been engaged. Everybody realized that the challenges to do this in Washington were going to be very, very hard because of the region. I mean, there was not a lot of regionalism and regional thinking at that point in time in Washington. And, you think about like the state jurisdictions, the county jurisdictions, all of the sub entities, and in the corporate sector, the nonprofit sector. I mean, it was, to get regional unity and regional common purpose was very challenging. And it was, a person like Bev Silverberg is an example of someone who was in the third class, who at the time was worked for Metro, and the whole, Metro was revolutionizing regional concepts and development and just, a perception and understanding. And classes from the very beginning were extremely competitive. I mean, it was limited to 50 people. In the early years, you pretty much had to be in a CEO or COO position to be asked to serve on the board, whether or not that was a corporate entity or a nonprofit. And it, there were very strict standards established at the beginning, like you had to show up every single month and you were not allowed to be absent or you would be booted out. And I think they booted out a person or two in the early classes that who had other understandably competitive situations, and there was no grace basically. But I have to say that from the very outset, I was just so excited at the concept, and on a personal level, I must say that as a busy professional, lawyer and young mother, and heading a major voluntary organization in the community, you don't have a lot of time to do things for yourself. And Leadership Washington was such a personal gift. I mean, where else do you get the chance to get 50 new or 49 new friends at this point in your life? And it's the way the program is designed, you really get to know people so well. Their idiosyncrasies, their, the strengths, it is such a giving and unbelievably committed group. And what I view is a huge gift, people that you would never necessarily cross paths with in life. I mean, Artist Hampshire Cowan is I consider her one of my closest friends on earth. I mean, and it's not, in addition to artists, I mean, what you have are friendships with people who will show up and be there with you, for you. And, I think it's still to this day, if you understand that you have a need and you were to pick up the Leadership Greater Washington directory and you had a challenge and you looked in that directory and found somebody who could help you solve a problem, I've done this before. You pick up the phone and, that Leadership Washington bond is as solid as gold. I mean, it exists and it's there. That is so fundamental and so powerful. And I think it's been such a huge, powerful force in the community. When you look at the elected leaders like yourself, like the mayor of Washington, like others who have gone through that program and jumped in with both feet and hands-on, it's made a huge difference. And I think the whole region has benefited from that. So I guess I drank the Kool-Aid right at the outset and haven't ever stopped drinking it.
So you mentioned Beverly Silverberg and Artist Hampshire Cowan. They're both on the conversation today.
I can't see that. I didn't know that.
They want to extend their hellos. And did you know them at all before your class?
No, not at all.
Did you know anyone in your class?
I knew a few. Yes, I knew a few people. Yes, and had crossed paths. Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's typical though. People, if you know 5 people in the class, that's a lot.
Right.
Before you go in, and then when you finish, you really are great friends with everyone in the class. So it is a very exciting process you go through for each class year.
Artist, I have to tell. This is a personal privilege story, but Artist was general counsel of the DC Armory Board at the time, and we have children the same age, and I was bemoaning that, trying to figure out what I was going to do for my son's birthday, and Artist, I said, he's passionate about the Redskins and he just loves football and everything, and Artist worked it out for us to have a birthday party in an empty stadium. And these little boys were jumping around the locker room saying, I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. And my son went to bed that night and he said, Mom, thank you for giving me the happiest day of my life. So, what child, that's Artist, one of Artist's many gifts to me, but I just, on a personal level, I have to say that, being there for each other, it's an illustration of how being there for each other goes very, very deep at multiple levels. So.
Well, you were part of a great class. The members of the class really are outstanding. And I guess my question is, how did you come up with boring but bonded?
It was the first two classes were very competitive, and they thought, they had the best names for their class in the world. And I don't know, we had to come up with a name at a very early point, and the group was struggling in terms of reaching consensus. And someone declared, well, we're just boring, that's all. We can't come to an agreement because we're just boring. And so, but we all recognized we were so bonded already at that point, that, I don't know, that's how it emerged. And it's a matter of pride at this point too. I mean, we took pride in that title from the day it was created.
So I got to say, having done these conversations with a lot of different people over the last few months, these 30th anniversary conversations, talking to members of the first class, second class, and other classes, it really sounds to me like your class is the first class to take Leadership Washington seriously. But the other two just saw it as a party time. In terms of, no, I'm teasing now, but in terms of, they all talk about the parties they had, and you're talking about the class days and the bonding and all that. So that's good. That's your way to get back at the first two classes.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
So what was your class year like?
The class year was unbelievably powerful, I think, for all of us. And it's the structure and the way the program was developed and executed. I mean, how often do people have an opportunity to ride a police car through the night and go on, to be there and have exposure and to issues and areas that you would just not necessarily, have an opportunity, depending upon who you are, what your, what your professional or personal commitments are. But to visit jails, to see the educational institution, to understand in a real way the transportation challenges of the community, and most directly, to really gain respect and knowledge about the challenges of coordination in the regions, and also the different cultures and the different forces that really impinge on abilities to do things, whether it's Virginia or, a place like Arlington versus Alexandria at that time. I mean, we're hindsight's always 2020. We're looking at this from 2021. I mean, I'm talking about 1988, 89 that I was in that class. And there were still so many formative challenges that were facing the community and the region. So we all realized, I think, and appreciated the fact that there was such a diversity of brain power and talent and kind of, the perspectives that people were bringing to issues and knowledge were very diverse. And that's, I mean, I think that's an important value that Leadership Washington has had from the very beginning. It's the diversity and the inclusion value that was articulated right from the founding and really inculcated it at the outset. So, the barriers that might otherwise be in existence in other parts of people's lives, that were broken down in a Leadership Washington situation. And I think that's a very powerful force. And I think that's a reason, one very significant reason why Leadership Washington has been so successful and has continued to thrive year after year.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, that's something that a lot of our members talk about, the diversity, the inclusion. It's what makes LGW sort of separate from other groups. Yeah. We are easily and by far the most diverse group in the region. And we're very proud of that. And I think our members are very proud of that as well. Yeah. It's something that, and you see it when you go to our events versus other groups' events. It's very, very easy to see. So we are very proud of that, and we're still focusing on that as one of our top missions.
And it's empowerment too. The empowerment concept that you don't go through Leadership Washington without realizing how important it is to help empower others and to help build bridges and be there in ways that, you know, might be out of your skin a little bit. So I think that's an important component too.
So does anything in particular stand out for you from your class year, other than the friendships, the partnerships you made?
You know, they're lifetime, lifelong friendships, and it is just a huge gift and blessing. I will tell you that I was in the middle of getting Bright Beginnings launched during that year, and having the ability to talk through challenges with like artists who jumped in with both feet, you know, like during that entire year, long before she was on the founding board. But the advice,
does artists jump in any other way than with both feet?
It's true. It's true. It is so true. But you know, there were so many members. What stands out to me is there were so many members in my class who were supportive and helpful and, you know, committed and you know, cheerleading to see the Junior League launch Bright Beginnings and get it started and to you know, and to be part of it, you know, from the earliest years. I mean, just a huge it was a huge gift, and the Leadership Washington talent pool was very much part of that from, you know, from the get-go. And you know, when Bright Beginnings, when we had written I helped write the grant, found the Federal Register announcement, wrote the grant, and a group of about 5 of us wrote this grant, and then won $200,000 grant from the Department of Health and Human Services to start Bright Beginnings. And we, you know, we had a little task force that met for 7 or 8 months, and, you know, kind of put together the building blocks. And then I was very privileged, blessed during my time as president of the Junior League to actually incorporate Bright Beginnings as one of the founders. And the Bright Beginnings concept from the get-go was built on collaboration among organizations. I mean, we had the Community of Hope at the time, Georgetown University Child Development Center, you know, we had a core group of about 4 or 5 collaborating organizations, and then
so let's back up just a bit.
Yeah,
so
sure.
You're with the Junior League.
Mm-hmm.
The Junior League decided to form this group called Bright Beginnings, this service called Bright Beginnings. LGW sort of jumped, or at least Washington at the time, jumped in through their members, through your class, and helped you put all of that together. So what is Bright Beginnings? So
Bright Beginnings is starting at square one. It is a developmental childcare center that is focused on serving the needs of homeless preschool children and their families. When the Junior League of Washington in the 1980s undertook a community needs assessment through its, it had a strategic planning committee in the league, and a community, it was a community focused strategic planning effort that tried to identify what the major unmet needs were in the community facing Washington. And this was before Leadership Washington was founded or created. And we did this through research of, available research through some of the nonprofit think tank organizations. Most helpful was like a interview process with about 30 community and government and foundation philanthropic leaders who really knew what the needs were in the area and what was being met and not met. And homelessness emerged as an area at that time that had huge challenges and not a lot of resources. And the league had been involved in in helping in homeless ways, but we were at the same time trying to look for a signature project. The Junior League has had a philosophy that the most effective way to use volunteers and funding is to match volunteers and money together. And so we were looking for something that we could put an imprimatur on, as this is a major community need, unmet community need. And I will tell you that honestly, Doug, we were horrified at that time. Shelters in Washington forced mothers and children to exit the shelters at 8 o'clock every morning to walk the streets of Washington, and there was no place for them to go. I mean, they would go into, at the time, Woodward and Lothrop's ladies' room or the public library. They would be grabbing, you know, food here and there where they could for their children, but they basically, it didn't matter whether it was frigid cold or the most sweltering day in summer, but they were out on the streets with their children. And it was horrifying to those of us who were mothers and parents, and just horrifying whether or not you were a parent or not, that was the situation facing homeless families in the city. So the Junior League decided to go after, there was a Federal Register funding announcement where the Department of Health and Human Services had Administration for Children, Youth, and Families had also identified this as a major need out there, you know, the care of homeless preschool children. So we applied for this funding and got it. And we modeled the program along the Head Start model. At this time today, the Bright Beginnings is a Head Start program, and we are a grantee for early Head Start as well as regular Head Start. At the time we started, we were able to serve children 2.5 to 5 years old. But we realized right away that if you're taking care of the 2.5-year-old and the mother still has an infant, it's you know, it was our goal practically from the outset that it was a recognition we needed to be able to take care of children from the earliest years, plus early childhood, and you know, the literature on preschool and early education was even at that time developed, and everybody recognized that the earlier you could start, you know, learning, teaching and learning and caring for children. But in effect, we created what was for all of those, you know, we opened in the Alice Sweetley Y in Shaw. We renovated it. Junior League gave money to renovate the space, and we opened with, we could serve a capacity of 25 children between the ages of 2.5 and 5. We then ultimately, in the history of Bright Beginnings, we've I think moved 5 different times. The longest period of time was in the Perry School, where we became a partner, and were there for almost 20 years. On New York Avenue and in that area. But our most exciting development, honestly, has been the opening and the funding and the actual building of a relatively brand new, still, it opened in 2018, state-of-the-art child care and development center, and across from Ballou High School in Southeast. I mean, we wanted to be in an area of the city we knew where services were still, you know, very challenged for people. And we've been very, very fortunate. Actually, a Leadership Washington recent graduate, Marla Dean, is the executive director of Bright Beginnings and is doing a phenomenal job. She actually was in that position when the center opened in 2018. We had a very long time, 16-year, the former head of the Department of Parks and Recreation in the district government. When she retired, Betty Jo Gaines came to Bright Beginnings and stayed with Bright Beginnings for 16 years until her untimely death, and you know, gave the organization a lot of stability and foundation that we've been able, Marla and the board and team at Bright Beginnings has been able to build on from that. I would say that, from the very earliest moments, we knew that we couldn't just focus on the infants. We had to do something. We had to develop a program that in our earliest program had parenting, education, and skills. I mean, you had to support the parents. And one of the collaborators was a program that offered like job training and opportunities. I mean, getting the parents supported to potentially get on their feet was a priority, right? From the very beginning. And also just, to knowing that to really break through poverty, it had to be a focus on the whole family. So one of the earliest categories of hires beyond teachers at Bright Beginnings were social workers and helping people, give that support. And over the years, the city has called on Bright Beginnings to be there as a partner. And I would attribute, although I can't say this is actually a direct outgrowth of Leadership Washington per se, but when the Greater Southeast Hospital was challenged and was being used as primarily a homeless, building to house homeless families, and there were major concerns about the status of children. The Mayor Gray asked the Junior League and asked Bright Beginnings to come in and help, with that, serve those children. And we started at that point a home care program that then became a model for early Head Start expansion on home care. And Marla and her team have been able to take it to new heights with shelters and in areas in the city. So at one point, the district government came to Bright Beginnings and asked us to provide evening care for low income workers, people who are really, largely either in restaurants or cleaning buildings or doing, the nighttime workforce where people had children that they needed their children in a safe place. So we provided those services until 11:30 to 12 every night in the Perry School. And until we moved into into Southeast Washington. But at any rate, that we've tried to be there for community needs, but with this most vulnerable population that is out there, and especially the vulnerability of the children.
So the main focus started as homeless.
Yes. And still is.
Children, and still is. You
still
kept
is.
That main
homeless
focus.
Or people living in transitional housing. I mean, hopefully they might be homeless when they come into Bright Beginnings, but then are able to move to a transitional housing situation. And at that point, the children are not, kicked out of the program per se.
Sure. So when you start back to your class, did anyone from your class join the board as you got this? I mean, this is 30 years ago. This is what a legacy for the whole region. Martie.
So at the time, the collaboration model was the collaborating organization had board members, and there were a couple of at-large board members, but the Junior League controlled kind of the number of directors. The ownership and control initially was, I'm using corporate terms, but was under the league at that time. But the vision from the very beginning was to create Bright Beginnings as a gift to the community, and that its ultimate long-term success was never going to be totally established until it was a broader community board of directors. So going back to my class, for example, Harriet Ivy was on the early boards, Artis Hampshire Cowan, Harry Staley. Lyles Carr was an advisor he was on the Junior League Advisory Committee and played a very pivotal role with his advice and wise counsel along the way, as did others. Julie Rogers was on the the Junior League Board of Advisors. So I mean, there were ties, right and left. I mean, it was all,
Yeah.
we were all like, bound together basically. And we view it was very much a collaboration as well. But ultimately, the Junior League was able to change. We wrote the board, we drafted the original bylaws so that we could break off and create this independent entity, and it would be an independent community nonprofit board of directors. So there have always been Junior League members on it, but it's not, not in any, the majority control is long gone. I mean, like 20 years gone. The Bright Beginnings just celebrated its 30th anniversary, and I'm not sure I can't remember honestly what year that was, but I mean, it was long ago that broke. So, and we've been very, very fortunate. I mean, Terry Copeland, Melanie is, I mean, we've been very blessed, and the two organizations have had synergy and talent pool over the years that is, I perceive, and I think other people would totally say, Leadership Washington has been a partner and a backbone in every sense, have been there, in so many different ways for Bright Beginnings over the years. And I was so touched at our most recent class reunion, everybody was still so excited about Bright Beginnings and about, Bright Beginnings survival and thriving and everything else. I mean, it's something that I think we're all just proud of. So.
No, that's very exciting. That's a great story for you to tell, for us to hear. And that LGW Bright Beginnings connection, as you said, is still strong. I mean, Marlene is one of our members. We actually stole a development manager from Bright Beginnings to work for LGW.
Right.
So
oh my gosh, you sure did.
So we're looking to poach your people.
Yeah. Right.
And some of our members are still on the board. Terry Copeland, you mentioned, and others. So let's shift a bit and talk about your career some, but talk about sort of leaders that you've seen over the years. How did you come to Washington and get involved with, what was it, you said Aiken Gump, and then tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I came to Washington out of graduate school and started at the Department of Health and Human Services, and kind of went up the career ladder in a variety of opportunity management and other positions. And I had always toyed with the idea of going to law school, but I had taken a pre-law course in my senior year in college, and I was a little bit bored, and I thought, I'm not going to do something that I think is boring in life. So I didn't go to law school then, stupidly probably, because it would have been, although no, I can't say that. I've been very blessed now. I've been very happy in life with the things. I had unbelievable opportunities in the federal government for contributions and to make a difference. So but I never put off the idea of completely of not going to law school. So at some point I got.
Just for a full disclosure, I was going to go to law school to my last year in college, and then I said I don't want to do that. And I've never looked back. No regrets ever since. So.
Yeah. Well,
I met too many law students in college. That was the problem. Too many law school students.
Yeah. Well, I will say, let's come back to this, but I did get very good advice as a young lawyer, older person, young lawyer, which I think has made a difference in my life, honestly, for how I've approached my career and everything. But anyway, I went to Georgetown, was lucky enough to go to Georgetown Law School, and graduated the department of, I had, wonderful support in the department. And I wanted to, at that point, I was almost 30, getting out of in law school, and I got pregnant with our first child, which I wanted more than anything in the world. And So I started law school at Georgetown when my oldest was 3 weeks old, and had a second child my last year of law school. So there would have been easier ways to do things in life. There's no question about that. I can remember really enjoying my first Mother's Day totally when it was my first year out of law school, not my first year being a mother, because I was taking exams at that point in time. But I opted to try to take my experience in government and use it in a way for my legal career that I think was really helpful. I felt like I was too old to sort of, so I love the health world and the relationships and the navigating, the skills of navigating the federal government, of working. I had worked at one point in the secretary's office in the legislative operation of the department. So I knew Capitol Hill from an executive branch perspective. And I was able to jump. I did straight hospital law for 2 years and then was recruited to Patent Boggs and was there for 27 years. A partner in the public health in the public policy practice, and very very fortunate in that sense to to be able to take advantage there. Patent Boggs merged with Squire Sanders in 2014, and Akali and I were the two equity partners who brought a group of 13 people to Aiken Gump, and I was there for 6.5 years. One of the reasons we chose Aiken Gump at that point in time was because it did not have a retirement policy, and the new firm was going to, and we got there 6 months later, a retirement policy was announced. So, mid-course corrections and curveballs or whatever. So, but it's Aiken Gump is a phenomenal firm, and Patent Boggs was a phenomenal firm, and I've loved being a lawyer. I realized when you're in public service and you're working when I was working for the federal government, I felt good about what I was doing, every day, because you were contributing to the public good in some way, and you were doing things that, would make a difference potentially for people and for people's lives. When I jumped into the private sector, I realized you can have like the intellectual satisfaction of like winning and doing good things and having the the like crossing the finish line in a victory, but the commitment, my commitment on the private nonprofit side really took more form. And I said to my husband, I said, I've got to do volunteer work because it just, I need that for my own psyche. I need to feel like I'm making like a hands-on direct difference in a that's my do it for myself. So I'm afraid I haven't been a very good exerciser or a very good, I don't have the cleanest house in the world, and I'm not gonna, there are lots of things that I just don't do right. But the thing that I have done for myself is do volunteer, make, volunteer commitments, and I have no regrets looking back. So anyway.
So give us some leadership lessons from you, from others you've worked with, and what strikes you, what has gotten your attention over the years as you've worked with people?
Well, one thing that I want to share, I alluded to it a minute ago, but the night that I passed the bar exam, my a close friend of my husband's, who actually was one of the two people in the country who invented the term marketing of legal services. And Steve Curtis had been inside of every major law firm in New York, California, Chicago, all over. And, we were out and he was treating us to the most expensive champagne at the Palm and saying, Martie, I just don't understand. There are so many chronically unhappy, lawyers out there. You've got to be really, really careful. You're a happy person at this point. You don't want to go down that road. And I said, what would your advice be? And he said, and this honestly is the best career advice that I have ever been given by anyone. And I I remind myself of it, and I've shared it with a lot of junior people too. I think there are a lot of chronically unhappy lawyers, but I also think that I believe people can choose to be happy. You know, happiness is a choice. You can choose to be grumpy when you wake up. You can choose to be happy. I mean, you know, you can't control the curveballs that come your way, but you can choose commitments in a career that are going to make you happy. And his advice was, one, work really hard, work really, really hard. Two, find an area of the law that you really love and become really good at it. Become the go-to person in a certain area or areas where, you know, your expertise is respected and that, you know, people will reach to you for your brain power and other things. And then he also very wisely advised, and I think this is true, not just for a law firm or a big institution, but I think it's really important in life. You know, find an internal community wherever you are of people that you genuinely like and you genuinely respect, and try, you know, try to work with those people, you know, and that is, I call it work family. And it's a concept that I have taken with me at every point in my career. And it is, I like to be around happy people. When I was interviewing out of law school, I looked for unhappiness and happiness, and I wanted to be with a happy group, not an unhappy group. And that is, you know, I think it's a choice. And then his fourth piece of advice was to assess periodically, is this still right? You know, do you need to make a change, or is this still right? And, you know, that was advice for a law firm and survival in a big law firm, but it's it's a piece of advice, I think, or elements of advice that really are important in life. So in terms of my, what do I think is really important? I think it's really important to be a mentor and to have mentors in life. I think you know, you need Vicky Martie, who was in the second Leadership Washington class and died suddenly and tragically at age 50. She was president of the Junior League before me, and she taught me more about leadership than, you know, virtually anyone that I've worked with in life. She had such a great strategic brain, and she was the first Junior League president who had young children. But aside from that, every single aspect of activities and initiatives, at the end of it, we would have a debrief, and she would say to me, Martie, this is what I would do, or what I would have done differently. This is what worked. This is what did. I mean, it was very much of a dialogue. I mean, you know, what do you think worked? What do you think needed improvement? How would you change it? What would you do going forward? And that kind of like touch point was an unbelievable mentoring exercise for me personally. And I think was very, very key. So, you know, one of the things that I think is important in a leader is to talk about we. It's a we, it's a team, it's not an I. Nobody ever does things. The best leaders are those who surround themselves with the smartest people and the best talent pool you can possibly get. You're not threatened by, you know, junior associates who might have be number one in their class at Stanford or Harvard or, you know, wherever it is. I mean, you want that brain power by your side, and you want them thinking critically, and you want them helping you. So I think that that, you know, that is one of, you know, those are a couple of components that I would say. The other thing is that I think it's really easy when you're on a professional track to forget about the little guy and forget about bringing people along in institutions. And one thing my father told me, you know, when I started in a law firm, he said, I hope that every day you live, the person who's at the front desk and the person who's, bringing the messages around or delivering the mail knows that you care about them as much as you care about your colleagues. And I think that's really important to, to focus on the, on it's people, it's support. I mean, it does take a village for the most successful people to succeed. It takes a village of people, but it's the village that we all belong to, and we're all part of it. And I also think that training is really important. It's never too late to say that you're not going to benefit from training. And I'll tell a story on myself. Over the years, I've had a fair amount of diversity and inclusion training on the legal track and in the law firm, and on that environment. And Bright Beginnings undertook a diversity training effort for the board of directors. Seriously, I think it was like 2 years ago. And I was thinking to myself at the time, gosh, I mean, I've read all of the literature. I've understood it. I've had this training, multiple times. And that training was really life-changing for me in a real sense. I learned so much. It was long before, I mean, not long before, but it was before the, say the national awakening that has occurred in the last, if you will, year and a half or so. And I also think that, those of us who are in Leadership Washington feel like, we get diversity, we get inclusion, we get, what do we need? No, but, the burden of being a minority, the burden of being African-American in this community at the most successful leadership levels is a huge burden. And I've seen that expressed very directly in law firm partners, and I've seen it expressed on the Bright Beginnings board. I've seen it in other areas. I mean, there is so much better and so many more challenges that we have got to conquer and move forward with to make this world better and to make our region better. So that's, I do think that, training and consciously stepping back, assessing, figuring out where you need to go is important. And then let me just, say that like on a personal level, to be a really good leader, I think you have to develop good strategic thinking skills, and you just have to create. You have to create options. You have to think strategically. You've got to, it's not intuitive to everybody that when you're advising a client, or whether, when you're trying to figure out, lead a board of directors, or, lead a group of people or whatever, you need a plan B in addition to the plan A. And even if you have a plan B, chances are you're going to need mid-course corrections along the way, even with that. So, being ready to pivot. I have come to appreciate there are just very few, there aren't one and done experiences in life. I mean, there just aren't, things don't get fixed once, and they don't get fixed the first time you do it necessarily. So you have to, you have to be prepared to fail, and you have to be prepared to change your course. And then finally, the most important thing I think is people don't pay me to tell them what they want to hear. I mean, they hire me. I want to be the one delivering the bad news to somebody before they hear it from somebody else. I want to deliver the good news, of course, first and foremost, and everything. But it's really important to be honest and to be authentic, and to be, to be an honest broker, and to live your values in the most direct way. And let me just close by saying that or close this thought, at least, Doug, by saying that I think it's really important that we have obligations to those who are most vulnerable and most needy in our community. And you've got to, deliver in that. I mean, I was last night we were at it was so fun. I mean, I just loved it so much because a family to me is the Don Bosco Cristo Rey community. And I served on the board for 6 years, and that Anna is in the Leadership Washington ranks, and I saw her name pop up here. I know she's on the call. I just, it is the most amazing community, and it is the most successful and amazing approach to really, it's a generational change agent for taking people out of poverty, and through education and through support, and giving people a network, a family, a future that for the immigrant and minority populations. And it's also a microcosm. I would argue it's like, it is the best organization in the Washington area that I'm aware of, where you have so much ethnic and racial diversity that the support structure is just amazing. And my heart bursts with how much I love that organization and how proud I am to be part of it. So anyway, we all have obligations here to make this world better. And I would just say that has just been a real privilege. And Leadership Washington is on the front line of making the community better and all of us better. And that to me has been such a huge personal gift.
Martie, we're going to take that as the final word. Thank you very much for a wonderful
you.
conversation. Thank you for the history of LGW, the history of Bright Beginnings. Thank you for your leadership lessons and advice you've given us, some tremendous advice. And I think sort of weaving through all that is this whole concept of lifelong learning. You always got to be willing to adapt, to change, to learn new things, and to keep adjusting. I think that's so important, and that's something that certainly we preach at Leadership Greater Washington. So, Martie, thank you for a wonderful conversation. Thank you for everything you've done for the region.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll let you say a couple things.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this privilege of participating today. I really appreciate it. It makes me very, very happy, and makes me feel very, very blessed to be part of Leadership Washington, Greater Washington. So thank you so much, and thank you. I don't even know who's on this, participants, but thank you so much for taking the time. You all have such competitive schedules and demands and everything else, and I really appreciate your taking the time to be part of this today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks, Martie. Don't forget, there's a survey to fill out to give us feedback on this. And also, I want to thank PNC Bank for being a sponsor of these Frontline Conversations. They've been a great supporter of LGW over the years, and we want to thank them for that. Thank you, Martie. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Thank you all. Thanks, Debbie.